Okay, so today we're going to be talking with the star of 80s. Okay, right?
The star of
Yeah.
the star of what? What show are we talking about?
Oh, I'm gonna you're gonna love this. From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Ken Olandt.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
Okay, today we're going to be talking to the star of many great 80s movies like April Fool's Day, Leprechaun, and of course, Summer School. He's also a real producer of over 20 movies and has starred in multiple TV shows. Please welcome my buddy, Ken Olandt.
Yeah. Da, 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 da.
Hey, welcome to the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux. Thanks for doing this.
Oh man, I'd do anything for you, Patrick. It's wonderful. Even this.
Even this.
Act 1, Beginnings.
Well, we will get to Summer School and how we met and how that all went down, but I really want to find out so I did some research because, on these things, it's like, you're my friend, but like, I know you, but I don't know all of your, when we're not together, I don't know what you're doing. But I looked it up and it said how you got into acting was you were discovered by Harry Gold. Is this true?
Yeah. So what happened? Well, it's kind of like that typical Hollywood story, but it actually happened. I was meeting with a girlfriend at this restaurant called Hampton's on Highland, which you might recall it was kind of a hamburger type place.
Yeah,
right?
the Foggy Bottom burger with peanut butter was the best.
There you go. I don't remember those burgers, but they were good. I remember that being great. Anyway, so I went there to meet her. And I was around lunchtime, and she was with a group of people that were in suits and so forth. They were obviously had a day job, and they all stood up to meet me. And I'm shaking hands with them. And what that did was it caught the attention of this talent agent, Harry Gold, who was there with his wife, Bonnie.
Uh-huh.
And they were actually having an argument. And she says, because she always called him Harry, who's that? Who's that? He must be an actor. Like, right, this New York girl. And so this is how I found out later. Anyway, so they passed their business card through the waitress, who I also knew casually, and got to Maggie and our table there, and I looked at it and I thought, oh wow, that's because I'd never really thought about this that much, and I'd come down from Canada to go to school in Art Center at Pasadena. My background was advertising, illustration, and found my way into working for a small commercial house making TV commercials. Just kind of.
So you were working. So you'd come from Canada, and you got into Pasadena Art School, or
Art Center.
Art Center for Design.
Yeah, College of Design. Yeah.
Okay, that's a huge, prestigious art school. So that's a big deal, right? When you were out here, I mean, were you excited?
Very excited. Yeah, absolutely. I was very excited. In fact, I came down to meet, and I had to go build up a portfolio and go back to Canada and finish up at the Emily Carr College of Art to get a portfolio to then get into Art Center. Right. Got into Art Center under a graphics major. Soon found out wasn't really I wasn't geared that way. I was geared more to drawing, sketch art, that kind of stuff. And graphics is a whole other discipline, completely different. So anyways, they asked me to leave at around the sixth term because my work was good, but I was never there.
Where were you, Ken?
Well, to be honest with you, I had discovered through my roommates this thing called EST, which was Earhart Seminar Training.
That was huge here in California. Just as a little background, that was like one of the hugest, like, what would it be?
Cult-like, but
it would be cult, but it really wasn't so much of a cult as sort of like a big thing where everyone was into it out here. People ended up being cult-ish around it, but it was like all about how to better yourself, right? And how to be
not really. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. No, it's about transformation.
Okay.
That's really the driving force behind it. And it wasn't necessarily anything particularly new. It was a new delivery. It was a new kind of delivery, which was confrontational.
Okay.
And it was authentic. extremely genuine and authentic because of this confrontation. And that to me just was like, wow, this is reality. Because you're in a room with 400 people, and it requires vulnerability and honesty, and people are standing up, and it's about how we have to take responsibility for our own lives, and we are often victims, and we have reasons, and all this data and stuff goes on. But really what comes out of all this willingness to be open and go through that is this love for 400 people in the room. You see, I'm you, having lived that life and that made those decisions. That's me there, and this is you here. That really resonated big with me. And Maggie was in.
So was this before acting? Because it sounds like a real good acting class.
It's a tremendous. See, this is what happened. That I met Maggie Rowan was her name through this, and she was the one I went to meet when I met Harry. Right.
Okay.
I mean, when I at the restaurant. So really what it was the prerequisite. This is how my dog says, I want to go out. Bang, he hits the door like that. No, you stick it out, or I'll put you in with Mike Tyson and Jake. Anyways, so that really is important, because when you stand up and you open up yourself to 400 people in a room over the span of these 2 weekends, you develop a couple of things. One is the safety that you're okay. It's okay to be this, because people experience this large scale of approval and acceptance and identification. Everyone's doing it. So it's, there's no need to be afraid.
Right.
And secondly, one of the byproducts, and the other is that aspect of sharing, that quality of really woke up in me the love of acting. In other words, the interest grew. I could see that. So I had, again, no interest. It wasn't my goal. And this, God put it in my lap. There you are. Here's an agent. Do something with this. And
now Harry Gold is like a legend around town, because his 2 daughters, Tracy and Missy, were actors. Tracy was
three daughters. Brandy was.
Brandy, of course.
Yeah, she took over the agency.
And to this day, when we did See Dad Run with Scott Baio, Harry is Scott's agent. So he was my agent for like 6 months. So
that's how we met.
It's a hold of you. How did it work? What is it that he said to you?
That's how we met prior to summer school, when we were at Harry's house, I think, at a party. I think your mom was there. I remember that's
that's right. Because my mom was an agent for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I see.
Yeah.
See what we're learning right here?
You jog your head a little bit
in this restaurant, and how does it work? What does he say? Hey, kid, I want to make you a star.
Just the opposite. Truly.
What's the opposite of that? I'm going to ruin your career, kid, no matter what.
My wife thinks you're an actor. I don't know. Right? That kind of thing. It was like, what? And so I went in, and this is when I met him at his office, and there was this woman named Ruthie who was handling, imagine Ursula the Sea Witch, only really sweet. She's this lady, and she's like, she was handling the commercial side. Mally Finn was also working at Harry. She became later a big casting agent.
Big.
But the point, yeah. So I just remember meeting Harry one day. Went in there I think it was the next day or next two, and that's when he said, "Well, my wife thinks she could be an actor, but I don't know." So then he sends me out on a reading for one Life to Live, which is soap opera, and I get like 5 callbacks and a test option offer.
Wow.
Yeah, and at that time, 5 callbacks is a little much, don't you think? I mean, 5.
Everyone's different, but man, that's exhausting. Yeah,
it's exhausting. Yeah, and at the time I was like, this is. I didn't know any different. Right. I didn't know how this looks. So yeah, so that, and then there was 2 other things going on. One was an episode of a Matt Houston episode was casting, and Barbara Baldwin was the casting director on that show. Right. Remember that, Barbara Baldwin. So in this time, I think I get like a 5 and under on a was one of those soap opera shows. It's not One Life to Live. That was when it was Days of Our Lives.
Okay.
And but during this time, I remember sitting there. I only have like a couple lines, and this guy was saying something, practicing his lines. And I remember all the S stuff came back to me, and I said, I think his name was like, Chet, tell me, what are you trying to say? And all of a sudden he was like out of his head and he just told his line. It was just because I came from that, that energy of just,
Right.
openness, and not appropriate. Anyway, so then I get these 5 callbacks, and now before Harry's, doing that, I got a One Life to Live. A Matt Houston. I get the show. I play a streetwalker on the show. His name is Scotty the Streetwalker.
Did you have a cute little thing around?
Again, just the opposite. He's a male prostitute, and the reason why I got the role was I didn't play him any specific way other than just regular, just a regular person, right?
Right.
Because they didn't want it, and this, everyone was affecting some kind of gay quality or some nasty, darker side. I just played.
Had you ever done any acting before all of these interviews?
I played a small black child in Finian's Rainbow in high school. Matt, Al Loheed and I took it on as a dare. And we're 2 black children in a play.
Of course, which Muggy. Today would be another great story all by itself. We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And I'm very excited to announce that we have a brand new class called Adult Weekly Class. Now, what is that? Now, that's a class that'll meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and you come in and you have an hour-long acting class with other students. It's very, very simple, very, very fun. So if you've ever wanted to be an actor or try it or just mess around, these classes are great. So the Adult Weekly Class is going to be every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific. Now, come and check it out. It's going to be really fun. Go to workingactorschool.com. Check out the website. You can sign up for the class there. If you need any other information, there's a phone number and an email on the website. You can get it there. And we would love to have you come and try. Talk to you soon.
Act 2, Success.
So you did a whole bunch of these things, like it says here, Fall Guy, Airwolf, A-Team,
right?
All of these.
So this is now
like 80s shows.
When you look back at your SAG earnings, you start to see, okay, where were the big years? And why? How this happened from a financial standpoint, because now we're vested, we get our pension, and you start looking back and go, where did it go wrong? Or where did it change? And I look back and I think what really came to me quite clearly most recently was that I had these successes of commercials and small episodics. You get on like the lists, right? You remember, You get on an Aaron Spelling list. You're in there. Hotel, Finders of Lost Loves, Love Boat. They gave us Love Boat.
And it looks like you did a ton of Stephen Cannell as well and Paramount stuff.
Well, okay. So leading up to that, because I'd done all these, right at that time, just around, this is really good, because right as I did Matt Houston, Barbara's ex-husband was a guy named Joe DiAugusta, and he was head of casting at MGM.
Right.
And he was doing a small little movie called Red Dawn with John Milius.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So she says,
I read on Red Dawn as well, and everyone our age did. It was the big movie that was coming out.
I screen tested for that.
Whoa. What
Not
was
only that,
with John Milius?
Yes. And what happened was I went in, first of all, Barbara sent me over to Joe. Joe worked with me. I remember going to Malibu, walking on the beach with him, and he's helping me get, teaching me how to act, basically, to be able to handle the lead role that Patrick Swazey would later do. God rest his soul. Right. Anyways, so what ended up happening was I get up to the point to where Joe brought me in for the producers. I just, how it is. You start climbing the ladder of callbacks, and next thing you know, I'm getting a test option, standing next to Charlie Sheen and Darren Dalton, and we're on a set in MGM. And I think what's his name? John Milius, his directions with me was like, "You're like Clint Eastwood. I want you to just do it like this. Go." Now, this is a scene when I think they call somebody out to split. Maybe it's Darren Dalton or it's C. Tommy Howe, whatever. And he says, "Go." That was my big direction. So I go into Freddie Field's office when I hear that it's between
Freddie Fields
me,
is like the head of MGM at that point.
right?
Yeah.
So Frank Yablans, then Freddie Fields. Frank Yablans was the president.
Okay.
I hear from Harry that and Joe DeGusta that it's between myself, Nicolas Cage, and Patrick Swayze. And
which is amazing now, but then it was
3 months into this.
Three
Patrick,
guys no one
3
knew,
months
right?
into this.
Was he still Nicholas Coppola?
No, he was Nicolas Cage back
okay.
then.
Okay.
I think he changed his name in Valley Girl, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Was this after Valley Girl?
Brilliant talent to me. I mean, either way, whether his name is. So I remember getting this news, and I went down to MGM, and I knew the assistant to Freddie Fields, this guy Tom. He kind of taken a liking to me. He was friendly with me, and I remember going into Freddie's office, and I jumped on his table, and I said, "You can't give this role to Nicolas Cage. He's city. He's New York." And he goes,
"Not a bad point.
This is true story." And he goes, "All right, Ken, I'm going to call Milius until he's got 24 hours to make a decision. I'm in favor of you." No kid. This happened. Told Harry this. Harry was like a little leprechaun because he was only about 5 foot.
Yeah.
And he's jumping up and down going, "If I prayed for this, this is what I want." It's kind of like this kind of stuff. So that was the beginnings for me to get into that. And you mentioned Stephen Cannell. Really what he
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but before we get too far off it, we'll jump forward later. But you worked with Lisa. Did you ever talk to Patrick about the whole thing with Red Dawn, or were you guys aware that you were up for all of this stuff together?
Oh yeah. Buddy hung out in the trailer with us. His nickname was Buddy Patrick's, and he hung out with us and Lisa.
Lisa and you starred in a TV show, and Lisa is Patrick's wife, so Patrick was in your trailer for that show, and you guys were hanging out.
Right. She at the time was his wife. She's now his widow. She remarried. She was on a show with me called Super Force, which was a shot in Orlando, Florida. And so he would come and hang out with us, and he was such a great guy, typical kind of like positive actor. We could do this, we could do that, because he had the star power to pull stuff off, right?
Yeah.
And he was very enthusiastic, just a real terrific guy. Lisa needed to be known for her own. This was her time, and this show was her character on this show, and she was up against it with the producers because they kept pushing her to get Buddy to come on and do something. And it's the same thing when I was producing. No, I'm not going to ask my A-list friends to come and do these things because I'm going to take their career. They're not going to do it. Right? I make B movies for action at the time. I'm not going to, Clooney's not going to show up for that.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, buddy. No. Anyway.
So I'm sorry. I'm all out of order here. So you've just gone up for Red Dawn. How did you find out that you're not going to be working?
Didn't get it. Yeah, I didn't get it, but that's all right because I had things were really picking up at that point in time, and I think what came along next was the following year. I believe was Riptide. Okay. I'd done a lot of Aaron Spelling shows to the one point to where Janine and I got married. This is 85. I started in 84. So 85, we got married, and they gave me a small guest starring role on the French Riviera cruise for a Love Boat episode, those 2-week parters.
Oh,
yeah. So
sweet.
It was
wonderful. I did 2 episodes of Love Boat, and I never saw the outside world. It was all inside a stage. And you go off to the French Riviera. That's sweet. I like that.
We had to move our wedding up because we had to catch a flight the next day to Geneva and then pick up with the crew and be on the boat. And I only had like 4 days out of these 2 weeks. It was a tremendous gift.
So you moved your wedding because of Love Boat.
Well, they were giving me the role. It's like, you're getting.
No, I know, but I mean, it's amazing how this business affects our lives in ways that we don't understand. So you guys move your wedding up because of Love Boat, and you're married now 39 years. Didn't you just celebrate anniversary?
Yeah, right. 39 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're on all these Aaron Spelling shows, and he calls his
Yeah.
good buddy Stephen J. Cannell and says, "Hey, hire this kid."
No, not at all. Well, no. So this what ends up happening is the role for Dooley, Kirk Dooley, the dockhand, comes up, and the show is modeling this character after 77 Sunset Strip, where they had a fourth character called Kooky. And they had written songs about this guy, Kooky, lend me your con. He was the youth draw.
So let's back up just for a second. So Riptide is a TV show for what, ABC?
Ripped NBC.
NBC with Joe Penny and
Barry King.
And Perry King. And
Tom
they're
Bray.
ex-Vietnam dudes who have a boat, a truck, a tractor, a helicopter, a tank, and they live down in the dock, and you're like this dock boy, right?
Yeah, like Malibu guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, so they have a helicopter, a pink helicopter called the Mimi. And Tom Bray is, at the time, the term nerd, applied to computer guys. And that was, everyone had to have a nerd in their show and look like it, stereotyped and all that, profiled. And Tom Bray was that, aside from the fact that he was highly intelligent and, and he just wasn't, he's a very technical, smart guy. Joe and Perry were, good looking dudes, one dark, one light, and blonde hair, whatever. And that was the formula. And yeah, and they were 2 shows, 2 year. I came in the second season. So they'd already hit the ground and done really well. They're number 4 in the ratings, right? Nice. Number 1 was Cosby was first, then I think A-Team, and then something else, and like maybe like a Facts of Life or something like that, and then us. And I got hired. And the way this happened was, the typical process where you go, you get the reading to call, read in for the role, and you work your way up to the point to where now it was a test option. And there was between myself and another actor who basically had kind of a little mini meltdown and decided not to come. So I'm in.
Do you know what was the meltdown over? Money or just?
I think this was an actor who had been raised in the business and had family and a lot of legend around him. It was I think it was overwhelming at the time of life. You take guys like, say, Robert Downey Jr., you would never think that the same guy today as he was back when he was having, hard times and run-ins with the law and this and that. He's who
was it?
Can I say?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got that. It's Riptide from the 80s. It's not
all right. So without building a huge stand-up with hurting this guy, I really feel bad to say his name now. I just thought he had a meltdown. Well, he had a meltdown.
Stuff happens in this business.
Yeah, I think it was rough. Yeah, it was McQueen's kid.
Okay. Which he then later went on to do Karate Kid, right?
Chad, yeah. But again, never met him. No slight to Chad at all. I just know how tough it is. And at the time when you're going through because as you know as well as I do, this industry, so much can come at you at such a time. And if you don't have the support system to catch all that, it just gets in the walls and people really get hit. He did a great job in Karate Kid.
And he's had a great career afterwards. So Chad McQueen and you are up, and so for those who don't understand, let me just lay it out. So when you're up for a network show, what happens is they get it down to the last couple of people that they really, really want, and then you do this really horribly emotionally destroying thing, which is you figure out your deal, so you know exactly how much money you're going to make. You know all of these different things before you read for the network. That way, the network can decide on who they're getting. And if they love someone, that someone can't hold them, up at the last minute and say, well, I want $1 million because their deal is already done. But what that does for the actors is
$1 million.
Yeah, $1 million.
Yeah.
But what that does for the actors is now you're reading for something that and I'm just pulling a number out of my hat. I don't know your deal. It's the 80s. Who knows what it was? But you could be getting $10,000 for a show or $5,000 for a show, more money than you've ever seen before in your entire life. And you're going to make it if you get this job. So ultimate amount of stress, ultimate amount of pressure. It's no wonder that he went bonkers for whatever reason. There's 1,000 I can think of right away.
Oh,
so
for certain.
Look, and what was your experience?
You add to this that you've got a person like at his level where he was at that time and where he came from. You can have management that are asking for too much. You
Yeah.
can have management that's asking for too little and not really backing you. There's so many ways that can be affected. So I was lucky. I didn't have any history, nothing to affect it. I'm grateful for everything I'm getting as I'm going along.
Right.
And it's not being unrealistic. And I got in there, and I remember I was in Joel Thurm's office.
Joel Thurm. I love Joel Thurm.
Joel Thurm.
Another casting director for the network and for the
for
people.
NBC, right? At
Yeah.
the time. And we're all jammed in this office, right? And then there's Steve and his wife and you know, the producers and so forth and all the network folks. And I remember this really well. I turned my back and I just said, that it was at the Van Halen song, might as well jump. And I just jumped. I said that and just jumped into the scene and did the scene and then left. And remember later, I got the role. And that was actually what the next day on that show, when I first started, not the next day, but the first day of working, this guy kept talking to me from behind and he kept going, series regular. And I looked back and go, it's George Clooney. And so I meet George that way. He got his SAG card on this show.
And what was George doing? Was he just an extra or atmosphere, or was he a small part? Or
he had 5 and under, you know,
okay.
like a couple lines. And so we hit it off and we were friends at that point. And then later, remember we were talking about, he got Facts of Life while I was on Riptide. Anyways, Janine and I get married during that show around about that time. And I guess just prior to, yeah. No, I can't remember now because because they don't say it in Inquirer, they say Riptide star marries dream girl. So it must have been, I must have been just hired on Riptide. I don't even remember now. Anyways, so the bottom line is I'm on there one season, I think, and then it's really uncomfortable because the stars are being total pricks. You know, they really are. They're so jealous of the fact that a young guy is now getting some, you know, what they were. They didn't like it.
Oh, so they were actively upset with you, not just being number ones on the call sheet and being pains in the butts.
No, they were just nasty towards me, particularly because I'm a threat.
How did that affect you as an actor?
Oh, it was, well, at that time, you know, where our acting is really limited to, you know, staying in a very easy lane, right? Just be fun. So I'm not really having to do much as an actor at that point. This is 80s television, right? We weren't doing Macbeth. So, you know, go over there, smile, call a guy, I'll say something funny. Here it is. You do that. Look good. Brush your hair. I don't know.
Right.
So yeah, Perry was a kind of a backhanded, you know, compliment stuff, and Joe was just flat out, you know, dark and a dick. I'll say it to his face. I'd say it anytime. I didn't dig it. I would never treat anybody that way. It was rough.
Right.
Tom was very cool, and that's the way it was. And Ken, you know, Steve took me in his office when he goes, "Listen, no one's kicking you off this show. You can stay as long as we're on. But if I were you, I'd be doing the movies that like Michael Pere's doing and Tom Cruise and these guys. You have that opportunity now and you know what, this show being on Riptide put me on the map.
Right.
And I realized that this last year, I wouldn't have had this. I would have gone through a lot more work that other actors had to do. I didn't have to, because once you're on a series and it's a top rated series, you're getting offers now. And you're getting opportunity to do better work each time. And that builds a portfolio, right, on its own. You start getting.
So where along this line, so you're doing Riptide, where do you get into, had you already done, because I know I wanted to ask you about this. Had you already done The Highway to Heaven with Michael, or was that after? I
don't have my resume up in front of me right now, but I did that show with Michael before Leprechaun, I think.
Okay.
It was it.
Well, what was, I mean, I gotta know, because the Little House, the people on Little House ended Little House, and then they started Highway to Heaven. So everybody that I worked with on Little House, with the exception of the cast, and Michael, did Highway to Heaven. So it was
Yeah.
like your experience on Highway to Heaven would have been exactly like that of Little House. What was it like for you working with Michael?
You can't get any better than that, than Michael. You really, I mean, could some things come close, like working for Carl Reiner,
Right.
I would say, but Michael was such an inclusive guy. The crew and the actors all were in his arms. You really felt that there was no class system here. There wasn't anybody who was getting any preferential treatment over another. He was the star. He was always going to be the pinnacle and the head of a family.
Right.
And you felt like you were in a family. I found when I was there on the show, so much so that one woman asked me when I was sitting next to him outside this hospital, and she says, "Is that your son?" And he looks at me, and he goes, "Yeah." And I went, "Nice. I'm in the family now." How about that inheritance there, Mike? No, and I met Mike Jr. on the show. He came and so I loved working with him. Didn't you?
Yeah, he was. I had a great time. Obviously, I mean, and everyone has the same story about Michael. He figured out long ago, somewhere probably on Bonanza, that all of these shows. And you were talking about the two guys that were in the show, starred in the show Riptide. That the fish stinks from the head down. So if you've got a good number one, and number one, if you don't know, refers to the call sheet where who's listed first is number one, and that's the star of your show. If you're number one, like Michael Landon, he figured out, on Little House, there were no big trailers. I mean, back in the day, there really weren't. But even then, he shared a small honey wagon room with Merlin Olsen to change their clothes, and that was it. He was always on set. He was always ready to shoot. He was usually directing, writing, and producing. Same with Highway to Heaven. And all the people that worked with him for many, many years. And so they wanted to always do what they could to make Michael's vision come to life as best as they can, because he did the same thing. He was never, as you're describing, you're a person that worked with him on an episode. So you're there 6-7 days, maybe 5, because Michael shot really quick.
Right, he did.
Yeah, and so it's like,
well, actually, you know what, Patrick, they liked this episode so much, he made it a 2-parter. It was originally just one episode, right? But the fellow who wrote the pilot, or who wrote the script, is in the show. He was the paraplegic, and I've forgotten his name offhand. I think it was Scotty. Anyways, he and that was another thing. Michael's heart was so big that way. He gave everyone opportunity. He acknowledged everyone. If he stopped production for a joke, it better be a good joke, though. It better be a good joke. Don't mess it up, because that will be your only opportunity. But no, he was really. I would say he gave back to the crew when he came under budget, and he knew how to do that. Yeah. He gave that money back to the crew. I remember that. Another thing that I found, which was really cool, because here's a network show, has all the money available to him. He's in the ratings, doing very well. He's legend. He's pedigree, but he still knew how to make, films, and on a level that everyone could really learn from. For example, when you had to do looping, go back. Looping is when we have to go and redo our audio, our lines, because of an airplane or whatever is flying overhead. Oftentimes, you'll go into a studio and you'll have your headset on. You'll see this on the screen, and you hear the boop, boop. And on the third beat, you say your line to match. Michael wouldn't do that with us. He would take us and he'd just say, let's go off somewhere quiet, because he had the natural ambiance. And he'd say, hear it, repeat it. Remember where you were? Hear it, repeat it. And that was all they needed, really. Yeah. He saved money. You felt like you still performed it. You're working with the director, not someone else.
Right.
You're no longer, and the sound quality is the same. Because you go to an 80
because you're in the same location. Yeah, exactly. With the same microphone and everything. They don't have to match anything. It's already matched.
Exactly that. And having been on the other side, that we all could call out the loop lines in the 80s and 90s.
Oh right? Yeah.
Horribly. And it got to be like, yeah.
It's such a different world. So you got such a huge resume, dude. I want to get to Super Carrier, which is a full-on, unabashed ripoff of Top Gun, where you're basically Tom Cruise. It didn't go long. And speaking as a person who starred in a show called Jag, which was, and the reason why I think we were more successful than Super Carrier is we figured out that no, don't rip off just Top Gun, rip off Top Gun and A Few Good Men, rip off 2 Tom Cruise projects, and then you'll have a successful show.
Yeah,
So
you got two chances to hit here. Yeah, exactly.
You star as this pilot, and I gotta say, the other guy in the show, and this is coming from a guy who's named Patrick Labyorteaux. The other guy in the show had the worst name an actor could ever have. It was John David Bland.
That's right.
At some point, somebody has to say to this guy, dude, let's spice up this last name. You literally look and sound like a placeholder for some other actor. But
yeah,
so Super Carrier, which again, weird credits. I know I'm going all over the place, but this thing fascinated me. I've never seen this credit before in my entire life. Never saw it except until I was doing the research for this, that on Super Carrier, there's a credit at the beginning of the show, the main titles, that says entire production supervised by Charles Freeze. Or so
Chuck Freeze. Right.
Freeze. So entire production supervised by Charles Freeze. Now you'd have like produced by Charles Freeze, executive produced by Charles Freeze, developed by Charles Freeze. But this seemed like a real personal story that he needed to get across. Do you know anything about what this credit was about?
Yeah, I remember back in the day, Chuck Freeze Productions, right?
Right.
He was a significant, he was a maker on the lower level of television. When I say lower level, it isn't going to be primetime stuff necessarily. And he had deals with Hallmark or those kinds of, outlets, different kinds of shows. Chuck Freeze, I think, arranged financing through German investment.
Okay.
And that is what was brought into the table, and he negotiated that to build his own clout because ABC had the show. Right. It's an ABC show. And we're coming off around about the Olympics. They're promoting it. We're coming off the movie of Top Gun. They got Steve D'Souza.
Yeah, Stephen E. D'Souza, Die Hard fame, wrote
Die Hard, Running Man, Knight Rider. The guy could have a conversation with you and be writing dialogue for another show at the same time.
Wow.
He had like 3 people living in his head. It was uncanny, his skills and ability that way. And we had William Graham, who no relationship to the pastor, but who did I think he'd done a lot of movie weeks. So they were loading up because they didn't have it in producers. They only had Chuck Freeze, and then everybody else was kind of a nobody on the pilot side when we first made the show. And then the cast was, who we were. A lot of us were just getting started. Other of us had been around forever, right? We had a few of them. And it was a good ensemble cast. It took the idea of the carrier. It kind of sounds like a disease, super carrier. And it was weird. But when we did make the show, when we saw it come out, we were like, what are they doing? You got Bill Conti, who did the music for Rocky.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, we got this trumpet flare. And then you compare that to Top Gun, which has Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone, hard rock, ninja motorcycles, no helmet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we are the most watered down geriatric version of Top Gun. And then when they did
they even had that bong that's in the Top Gun theme, the bong.
Yeah,
at the beginning to really, really get you in the mood. Go ahead.
You're in it now, and all the horrible graphics of the day. But we had we're in the cockpit, right? And we're flying, and all of a sudden, truthfully, inside those cockpits, it's a hurricane. It's blowing in there,
Yeah.
It's cold. You're up and right. So we did these rolls. We're supposed to be doing these rolls, right? And they had us going, they wasted so much time doing these full 360 turns.
Wait, were you in a real jet? Were you really in a jet?
No, we shot the pilot.
Right.
We shot the pilot on the carrier, on the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
And we were 100 miles at sea for like 10 days or so. And it was an amazing experience. No question about that. Oh man, like people bowling on your roof.
There's so many corresponding stories between that and Jag. We were on the Stennis only for 3 days, but being launched off the carrier and living on the carrier, yeah, it's a whole experience. In fact, literally the same footage that you guys used, we used in Jag. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff from Top Gun. The only difference, I mean, you guys were directed by Jackie Cooper, the pilot, who is a huge child actor, and he played Perry White in Superman. He's an actor. Was he a good director? Did you enjoy working with him?
I loved working with Jackie. He was a screamer, yelling at people, screaming. It's like old Hollywood, but it was Jackie Cooper. And he was if you like something in the scene, like you're doing rehearsals, that's it. Okay.
So what was the process? What was the process when you got this show? Because obviously, hey, you're an actor, you get a call saying they're going to do Top Gun for TV. They're looking for the Tom Cruise guy. You get the job. I'm thinking this is like, in your head, this is like a big break, right? I mean, Riptide was great, but a huge break. It goes for 8 episodes and then they cancel it. So there's all this money. What's that?
It's my fault.
No, it's not your fault. Not your fault. I'm going to blame John David Bland, the Aussie from. Why is he from Australia? Why?
No, he's from England.
Oh, England. Okay.
He was. I think he was England. John passed away. I'd say 15 or so, 20 years ago. He was British. He was a Brit playing an Aussie. A dude playing another dude. Anyways, with the way we, like anybody, the breakdown comes out, your agents send you in, but I'm also on a name level at that point. I really believe that God takes care of the children. It's kind of weird because every time Janine was pregnant, I got a show or some kind. So true. So Janine's pregnant with Taylor, our first, and I go in to read for this show. And you remember in ABC, CBS, and NBC, these are the only 3 going on. I think Fox came in later, but they were all unique. NBC had Joel Thurm's office. CBS had the long walk to rehearsal hall E, which had the small door with the chicken wire window. And then you got to walk long out into this, looks like a room, some kind of almost like a gym. And everyone's sitting in these fold-out chairs, and you do your bit. And then when you're done, you walk back. You can almost hear them talking. Then you got ABC, which is most, humane. You got like a little stage inside. They're sitting in these chairs.
I just remember ABC being extremely dark. I couldn't see. I didn't read for this show, but for another show, and it being extremely cold. I just thought that not.
Yes, that's
physically,
right.
physically
cold.
Freezing. Yeah,
I do remember that. And you remember feeling this is going to be weird because I'm freezing. Right? I do remember that. That was the ABC had that. You had come in from the hallway, and then you walk directly onto the stage, if you will. They're already in there in the dark in these chairs, so it's like a theater,
looking like they're planning on taking over the world because they're all lit, and it was really. I did a show called Too Good to Be True, which was a pilot for ABC, and it was like this whole process where. And of course, they always interview you at 5 o'clock on a Friday. So you leave there wondering, well, what's going to happen? And you never know until the next week. So please continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, my God. The 5 o'clock. I remember the 5 o'clock, the end of the day, more important interview. You get this drive home and you're stressed because you always redo everything in your head right when you've done it, after you've done it all. So I came in and I got, that's where I read for it. Janine I must have won them over and got the role. I was very lucky. So the day that Taylor was born, which was the February 10th, I remember taking a limo down to San Pedro, where I got to say the famous line that got me the role, which is a la Jack Nicholson, where the character comes out and he says, "At ease, boys. There's only so much awe and admiration a man can take in one day." And to do this whole thing. Right. And they loved it, but I got to actually deliver that line when everyone's applauding me because Taylor's been born,
That's great.
It was a special time. So Super Carrier, then then now we're moving later into the career here where summer school, April Fool's Day, or I think April Fool's Day first. No, summer school first, because I remember we had that screening with Carl Reiner and also Meg Ryan was there because she knew Dean, I think, and she knew the co-star. There are three names. He was in ER. He's also in he was in Top Gun. He was the Goose. What's his name? He's in Goose. He was Goose.
Yeah,
He's in Goose.
Edward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever. That guy. He was dating
everyone's
or married
screaming
to.
at their screens right now.
Oh, nice. We're live. So yeah, she was very sweet, and I remember that we had dinner with Harry, Janine, and I right after, and that's when they said you got summer school, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's.
Well, we
Oh,
skipped
yeah, no,
over a whole bunch of stuff here. So so Super Carrier gets.
I got to correct this. That was summer school screening. They said you got April Fool's Day, and that's
Okay.
April Fool's Day.
So let's go back. So Super Carrier gets canceled. You've got a brand new baby.
Yeah.
You're freaking out, but then you get an audition, I imagine, shortly after that, for summer school. And how does that come about? Because I tell a story on my TikToks that Mark brought me in from a movie along with Dean and Kirsty that we had done called Prince of Bel-Air. And so
Right.
Yeah. So the quick story on summer school was it was a John Candy movie that was going to be directed by who's the lady who directed Fast Times? Amy Heckerling. So Amy Heckerling was going to be doing summer school. And then apparently there was some deal where Carl Reiner got screwed over at Paramount and they said, well, whatever movie you want to do, we'll give to you. And he read Summer School and he goes, I want to do Summer School. And then John Candy passed away. I think this is how it went down. But John Candy wasn't involved. So they needed to find someone. They found Mark. And then Mark brought me into audition. And he brought me into audition for the stripper, Larry Casamayas. And the way I tell the story is I did my reading. Everyone's liking me. I did my dance. And I was cast as the football player because I can't dance. But I think we were all auditioning at the same time. So it's not like I didn't get it and then they went to you. I think it was all happening at the same time. That was my experience. It was through Mark. It was with Carl. Dean tells another story, which you'll see later. But what was your experience?
So Penny Perry was casting, right? Perry, yeah. So Penny Perry's casting, and my wife was a dancer. Again, this was Harry's deal. He brought me in, and I had to, basically. I don't know if yours is the same, but I had to say the lines, the main lines, which is, if you knew then what you know now, my mom, better aunt kissed me with tongue, and then do some kind of movements to show. And I was in pretty good shape enough at that time. Anyways, I always kind of maintained I played, high level hockey. So
you were in great shape.
I was all right. So anyway, a lot of makeup when we shot the movie. Anyway, so I did the dance move, and I remember dancing up to Carl because my wife taught me a lot of good things to throw in there, right? Because it's a stripper, it's sexy. So I started doing the hip roll, and I gyrate right into Carl, and he goes, "Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Fine." You can imagine him doing that. Ended up getting the gig, and it's probably the easiest job I think ever anyone could have. You sleep most of the movie. I get paid to have women paw at me and dance around naked and make friends for life. And
it really was. I mean, let's take a moment here just to talk. We had I think everybody we had such a great time on summer school. Here we are. All of us had come from some sort of lower version of Hollywood, meaning like we'd done independent movies or TV. And here we were on a big time movie from Paramount Pictures with Carl Reiner directing, with a real budget, with real movie things happening. It was fantastic. And on top of it, for me, I can say I was so excited because sometimes you end up reading with other people, but for me in summer school, I was auditioning with Mark and Carl, and I didn't get to meet everybody until that first week of rehearsal when we rehearsed at Paramount. and seeing what everyone was bringing made me so excited because everyone was so good. Everyone was so perfect for the role. And then
Right.
we ended up shooting at a place called Hughes Junior High, of all places, out in the valley.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
On
like
Shoop,
John
on
Hughes.
Shoop Street. On
Yeah,
Shoop.
on Shoop. And it was like this abandoned school that they ended up shooting movies. Karate Kid was shot there. A whole bunch of other things were shot there. We
I didn't
shot
know that.
there, and we shot at like Malibu Grand Prix. We went to Knott's Berry Farm. We went to the beach.
Yeah.
We went to the petting. Everywhere that you see us in this movie, we actually went to. So
Yeah.
it was a party, literally a party. They would throw parties. Carl Reiner would do Simon Says games in between shooting. So I
How about
had
Halloween? How about when it came
yeah.
over Halloween?
Tell them about Halloween.
Halloween, Carl brought in like mariachi and food trucks and so forth. So everybody got to experience this, lunchtime together. People dressed up in different costumes and had a competition. Obviously, props is going to win,
Right.
right? They got everything. Makeup comes in very close on that one because they got everything that props doesn't have. Mark dressed up as Carl, and it was just
I
right.
forgot about that.
Yeah, and so there's this fun feeling of a giant family getting together for a picnic lunch of some kind. But it was good food. We had it was mariachi.
Well, didn't we shoot the big bloody
at the
scene
school, by the way?
with Rick Baker did all the effects for that, where you're pulling out your guts, I'm pulling out my tongue.
Right.
Didn't we shoot that around Halloween where they let us take our makeup off to?
Yeah, that was at the school where we did that. That was it was at that same time, same place. That's where the party, the Halloween party was at on that lot.
Right.
I mean, on
Yeah.
that set.
Yeah.
But
We had a great time.
A quick bit of trivia about that. It was when we shot out on the beach where Dean and Gary, have this from Anna Maria, right? They're going to throw these cantaloupes in the air. If you play this movie back, you're going to see where a piece of this cantaloupe jets off as it explodes. That piece hits me right in the eye. I'm standing next to Carl and George Shapiro, his manager, and there's a light post there, and they do the scene, and all of a sudden, boom, whap, hits me right in the eye, and I go, oh, like that. Never, oh my God, it's blinded. It was enough
I forgot about that. What?
Yeah.
Didn't you have an eye patch or something? Wasn't there
No, it was they did treat me there, but it wasn't enough. I fortunately did not get anything in my eye. Just one of those things like you get punched and but fortunately it hit me in such a way that it's a pretty big chunk of cantaloupe that it hit part of my eye, but it didn't really penetrate or hit, do damage. Right. But it's enough that you're like driving home with one eye like this, heading back. Yeah.
I remember after we shot this movie, we're all excited. Everything is like this big deal. We're at Paramount. You explained just now that you found out that you got April Fool's Day at the screening.
Right. Yeah.
Then when it comes out, it was, I think, Beverly Hills Cop 2 that they had our trailer. And it was the first time I've ever been in a trailer in a movie theater watching another movie where we saw the trailer. And I was just like, I couldn't get over it. And then we did how
cool was Mark? How cool was Mark? The night the movies hit the theaters, he called everybody up.
Yeah.
And so there I am in our house in Tarzana, and I remember getting the phone call. And we had phones back then. Yeah, we had cell phones. Break a leg. Your movie's coming out. Yeah. It's like, who does that?
Mark Harmon. Yeah, Mark that's about it. That's about it. Yeah. Again, Mark Harmon, Michael Landon, all of these guys, they lead a great show. And you can tell. I mean, he really was. One of the things I liked about Mark was you wouldn't think that Mark was a comedian. And Mark has a sense of humor, but what he does in Summer School, he's really doing a good job at being funny in a way that he doesn't look like he's trying, which for anyone that knows acting, it's really, really hard. And, his football background, I think really prepares him to get ready and go to work. And he's a really hard worker, even if that work is acting. So you're getting on to April Fool's Day. You're coming off. Now, when you started shooting April Fool's Day, had Summer School come out yet, or was it still waiting to be
I
released?
have to look. I don't remember. I have to look back. I think so. I just I may have gotten them mixed up because there was Leprechaun was shortly after that too.
Mhm.
But April Fool's Day was a location movie. So we shot it in Canada, up in Vancouver Island. And around about that same time, or just prior, I'd done a Gunsmoke, the remake, which was a movie of the week using the original cast from the TV series Gunsmoke. This is their first movie of the week that they're trying it out with. And that was in Canada as well, in Alberta. So I don't know time-wise which is right, but this is, excuse me. One thing I remember to interject is when you said we all came to meet at that first read-through, we're all hired. I felt extremely intimidated because you guys had all done such good work, different kinds. You knew the business really well. I'm like this, lucky dude who got in. I don't look, and I'm able to sustain it, and I have all these good fortunes propelling me along, but not saying, "Oh, here's any particular great actor." It was just I just looked at, and I didn't study theater in school.
Right.
A lot of you guys did. In fact, you went on later with like Moosey Dryer to do groundlings type stuff. What did you call it? Remember?
Yeah, I did. It was two groups I was in. I was in a group called Mice, and then I ended up at the ground
Mice.
doing improv.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a mark of a real thespian, a real actor, a real talented person. That's what they do. I hadn't developed that and found myself in a position of having gotten it without really earned it. And suddenly
But you were smart enough to do the thing that a lot of people don't do, which is you didn't walk on set going, I've made it, here I am. You worked just like everybody else. It was like everyone, what I liked about that group of people is everyone, I think, respected the opportunity and gave everything that they had, which for sure you did. I mean, you're
yeah.
nothing.
How could you know? How could you really? I mean, you look at like Dean. This was really Dean's vehicle.
Yeah.
And again, you just have to appreciate a lot of that stuff coming in because it's so much of it around. You've got, Jeff Franklin wrote this, and you got Mark Harmon, sexiest man in the world, and Kirstie Alley from Cheers, and yourself who've been working on all these shows since as a child. There's a few upstarts along the way, I think who is it? Not Courtney, but I think Courtney kind of rode along my level where we had the commercial look we're in, but we hadn't done a ton to really merit anything. And then, but you just had to have respect because everything around was quality and quality people too. Everyone just got along great. It's such a fun time. So again, but for me, particularly moving from this level to then, because I'd always wanted to be have a big family, that's my passion. Like was a lot of kids, and so I set about populating the world. No,
well, you were close. I was doing 5 kids. You got?
Yeah, last count. Yeah, they're a color. I can't remember their names. I just give them colors now. Don't lie to me. You live with me, I'll find it. No, they're really wonderful people. They don't live. They're all adults now. But so my point in saying is when you move from actor this life to now you're getting married, children, and that doesn't really flow well with this business.
Right.
It's not easy to have a marriage and a family and some semblance of normalcy, whatever normal is these days. But what we thought and agreed back, when we were kids somewhat, that's hard. It's really, really hard in this business, and
well, when you end up, you're back in Canada though, does Janine go back with you? And is it where you're from? What part of Canada were you coming from?
So I was born in California. We moved up there in the early 70s, late 60s, the range. And my dad took a job with he was in the oil business as a petrochemical managing plants, that kind of stuff. And he was supposed to go to Africa and we were supposed to go to Switzerland. We got the shots and everything, and they said, yeah, do 1 year in Vancouver and then go. We went to Vancouver, and then he went to Libya and said, fuck this. I'm not staying here. This is Gaddafi guy's nuts. And so they said, okay. So we stayed in Vancouver, and he worked in other places, Calgary and Bellingham and so forth. So we just stayed there, and that was really my home, was West Vancouver.
And so when you got back there for April Fool's Day, what was that shoot like?
Oh, that was wonderful.
When you got back there, what was that shoot like?
Yeah, that was a great shoot, because we were on the Vancouver Island, right? And I remember playing guys in hockey from Vancouver Island, Victoria. And we had Griffin O'Neill and Tom Wilson, funniest guy, Tom.
Now, I've worked with both of these guys. They're both really nice guys, or at least
really
at the time I worked with them. But you also worked with Ryan O'Neill at one point as a producer.
Yeah, right.
A weird situation where you worked with both these guys?
No, I didn't work with Ryan until much later, because as a kid, the young person, I'm working with Griff, and you like him. He's a good guy. He's a quality little actor. When at the time he just had a lot going on in his life to draw from. Yeah. And right. And then you had Deborah Foreman and Deborah Goodrich. Deborah Goodrich later becomes a very dear friend, as is Deborah Foreman, and Amy Steele. One good story about that movie is that if you see Amy and I carry the half of the movie on, there's this one part where we're up in the attic together and we hear some noises. I'd seen something and we're together, and I had to fart in the worst way. I mean, I just had to fart. And our director, the name just skips me right now. It'll come back and he says, "You should have just farted." And I thought, there's no way I'm going to subject Amy to this. She's gonna, but you see, a real actor would do that, and if you think about it, we got caught up in the formula rather than what the performance opportunity that's there.
Right?
Because how good would that have been? What the hell is that?
Well, you never know how the other people are going to react, for sure. You know, if they're going to ignore it or if they're going to go off with it. There was,
Patrick, I would say, don't worry. I would say, let it see what happens. See, this is not about professionalism and all that. No, this is about we're trying to get something performance within the context of our script. Yeah, man, let one rip. See what happens. Zog can retake it, but that was one of those embarrassing moments that I wished I'd just done. And, instead of like going upwards. Anyways, so where were we? Back in Canada, we shot at the Cormy Mansion, which was a beautiful, beautiful. That's where they shot 5 easy pieces. Again,
oh wow!
What do they call it? Degrees of separation from Jack Nicholson. He shot that movie 5 easy pieces. I'm in the same room where he calls his sister penis envy. It's actually written on the bedroom kitchen scene or breakfast scene. It was written on the door there. It was wonderful being back in Canada. One particular time though, I wished we'd had a more experienced crew. Was in that movie, you'll see where Amy and I go into the boathouse. And this is where we're getting it on in the boathouse. And the camera has got a tripod literally like almost right up my butt. And she's on the line like this and shooting over me. And then underneath, you can see through the boards of this boathouse is Griffin's body float by. Right. And this is all in the film. You'll see that part. So then we cut to the reverse, where I come running outside, and Fred Walton was the director. And I just threw this thing in where I was kind of mooning Amy before we bust out of there. And I used that running out with my ass hanging out. I pulled my pants up like this, and Fred goes, "Oh, nice touch." It's like you got some in there, didn't you? Even though you were, it lends some credibility. Because if you're getting it on, you want to say, yeah, you really interrupted something, Griffin. So I'm running out there, and I jump in the water, and this is now October. Ooh. Cold, right? This is ocean water. And I start swimming. And, the ego says, I can really go, man. I'm going to show my stuff. Not thinking that there's a possibility I'm going to have to swim back. Because the guys that were in the boat were supposed to pick me up, the dinghy, They passed me by, and they went all the way out to that dinghy that had nothing in it, which I was swimming to. And now I'm turning around, and it's like hypothermia setting in, and there's these little man o' wars floating around me. And I'm thinking, that's still there. I'm not doing any more takes of this stuff. This is time. That's a true story. He never made it to the movie.
That's amazing. Now, when you were doing this movie, Tom Wilson was there. He had been in Back to the Future. What was it like working with Tom?
Tom was fun. Tom and Clayton Rohner were really a couple of cut-ups.
Clayton, if you don't know the name, Clayton Rohner is one of these guys that in the 80s, he was in a lot of work and just never got that picture or series later on to carry him to the next part.
Yeah,
of
he's
decade.
exactly.
Really, he's a great actor. He's really good.
Still is. I mean, his look, like Dean's, Cameron's has really matured beautifully and can give them characters of, Dean's obviously more sinister in character and can be at the same time comical, whereas Clayton would be more sinister and handsome, because he had that very leading man look to begin with. And he also was just a real talented guy, funny too. All of them, everyone. It was a little contentious at times though, because I remember Tom, because he's so funny, he's quick-witted and he's a little sarcastic and he kind of cutting. And if you're not ready, with his humor, it's
and he's a big guy too. I mean, obviously you can tell, but Mike Fox is so small, you think it's just because of that, but no, he's a big guy.
Yeah, he is a big guy.
I mean, he can be impressive and what is it?
Intimidating.
Intimidating. Yeah, intimidating.
Yeah, he is because he's funny, and he's funny as a comedian. Funny when they're you don't heckle these guys because they'll come after you, and he won't make it look good. It won't be fun. But he also had a busted up hip, and I played high level hockey. It's like, dude, you mentioned it a couple times. Hockey's a big deal, and it was a big deal in Hollywood, and you were on a lot of, I don't know if anyone knows this, I'm sure some people do. There's a huge, or still is, a huge Hollywood hockey league or team. Can you share what that's all about and how that comes into your life? Sure, yes. So it happened, Jack White was the fellow who was a cartoonist and animator, and also he was hired for a lot of supervisory stuff, helping whenever they had figure skating or hockey in movies and so forth. And he worked with a guy named John Bennett Perry, who was Matty Perry's dad.
John Bennett plays my father-in-law in Jag, so we got to work together. And my son is named Joe Bennett off of John Bennett because we love that pairing of names. So it's all connected, man. We're all connected.
Well, yeah. Well, anyway, John hooked me up. He ran the team. And on this team, you've got all these people who we are knowing and working with. Fortunately, having grown up in Canada and played, competitive hockey and so forth, and actually, what was a goal of mine, didn't make it. So that's why I came down to go to school. I wasn't going to get, drafted or picked up. So my claim to fame is Phil Esposito asked me who I skated for. So on these events, you can you play with pros, ex-pros, and actors, and you play for charity events. And we're usually the opening to something like to draw in people. I don't know how much money they raise, but at the time we were doing pretty well. They're drawing in a lot of people. We had, Kelsey Grammer, right? You were bringing in a lot of people to see those kinds of personalities, plus the legendary pros like, Bobby Hull, and these are, way back. Gordie Howe.
What kind of Hollywood guys were playing? It was you.
So on the Hollywood side, we had Alan Thicke, obviously. We had Jason Priestley, Matthew Perry, Ricky Dean Anderson, good player, Dave Coulier. So there's quite a few of these players that on this list, this Hollywood celebrity, Jerry Hauser, who was a voice, right? A lot of voice actor and Summer 42. Again, David E. Kelly, super, huge producer, right? Prolific. Yeah, good hockey player, played college level.
Let me put you on the spot. Let me totally put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Who is the best celebrity hockey player?
Who's the best? I would say it would be a close one. from the celebrity side, I would say it would be Dave Coulier, myself, and Lachlan Monroe came later. But in the early days, I would say that'd be it. Cooler, myself, and maybe Ricky, because some guys are good players, just positions are different, right? Defenseman is a different hockey player than a forward.
Who is the biggest baby?
Oh, Jason Hervey.
That sounds like
so. And rightfully so. Jason Hervey deserved every little bit of shit he got. I think Chimenko, or what his name is, Ivan, whatever, one of the big dudes from Edmonton, stuffed him in a hockey bag on the ice. One time we were playing in Tiger.
Wait, hold on a second. They stuffed Jason Hervey into a hockey bag?
Yeah.
Please tell me that story.
Oh, we were playing, and it's in the game, and he just grabbed a hockey bag from behind the bench. He was the guy everyone liked to pick on, right?
Right.
Matty Perry was like everybody's little brother. Jason was like everybody's past, because such a mouth on him. And
well, Jason produced See Dad Run, so I know Jason very well.
Yeah,
I understand. He's on the smaller stature, and he talks the biggest game, and he doesn't back down from anybody. But if you can't fight your way out of a bag off a hockey,
it's better. Yeah, you better have guys who work for you who can. Because he wasn't eliciting a whole lot of support there. Not everybody was jumping around to help out Jason. But there was one time I did stick up from at one point when Tiger Williams, who was, people look up Tiger Williams, he's one of the most notorious, fighter guys in hockey, just a ruthless player. Some say, but he liked me because he's from Vancouver, so we were cool. But he'd go after guys like Jason. He said, you smack him against the glass and says, nobody touches a puck when I'm on the ice. And he points at him, nobody. And I'm like, geez, man, it's a charity game. What are you doing? I see him whacking David Kelly behind, skates out, bam, hits him right behind the legs. And Kelly just goes down. Now I'm talking, come on, guys. I just come.
David Kelly is an institution. And you can't get David Kelly out.
No, it was getting a little crazy. Gordie Howe and I had gone to a hospital to see this one fella who had a very bad accident. And
let's just slow down a second.
Yeah,
you just said the sentence Gordie Howe and I.
Yeah,
that's freaking awesome. I mean, you're growing up in Canada. You're playing hockey. Do you ever think you're going to meet Gordie Howe, let alone play hockey with him?
I never thought I would meet any of these guys, let alone play and get such. I mean, again, it means a lot to me when I played with these guys, particularly Phil Esposito, when he said to me, "Who did you skate for? You skate so fucking good. I mean, well." Change that word. And I mean, that was like huge for me. It was really, really big. So to play with Gordie Howe, hang out with Gordie Howe, go in a limousine with him and Rob Paulson. We went to see Gordie's family.
Rob was playing as well.
Rob
is like one of the great voiceover legends. He was an Animaniac. He does a ton of stuff.
Oh yeah, and terrific guy, just really, really sweet. Yeah, and he played with us, and he was big he's from Detroit, so it was, and he knew Gordie, his wife Colleen, and that's how I got to hang out with him. Robbie and I would always be the ones in the morning that we'd go to the radio shows to do the radio to hype the game coming up with somebody. I got a good story about one time. We're in New York, and this was from one of these games, and I think we had the Long Island, Pat LaFontaine, guys from the Long Islanders. And so the end of this night, we're all partying, and these two girls are from the PR company. And so we're all we're going together. I'm walking out with them, getting into a cab, and we walk up to this cab. It's pouring rain. It's just, New York in the rain. It's miserable. And the girls get to the cab, the door opens up, and this other guy's got his hand on the door coming from the outside. And there's this struggle and I'm coming in from behind, like walking up to them. One's in the cab. They're fighting over the door. And so they take this umbrella and they're like warding him off. This guy's, get out of the cab. And so I grab it, and he gets jagged. Now he's pissed, right? So he comes around, and I did my best Karate Kid. I was like, whoa, I don't want to hurt you, man. Okay, that isn't working right now. He's not intimidated. So I just, what? This is where you go, might as well jump, right? You go, bam, 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 as hard as you can. And he all of a sudden he starts to open up. He's bleeding. He's like, never mind. He walked away. So I go downstairs the next morning, and everybody's, going, whoa, like this, selling him karate gun. I think you get so worried, so scared, because I don't really confront. I don't have confrontations. I don't have fights. And now I'm in this situation. Like, God, I got lucky, man. I got lucky. Anyway, so
well, let me blow through the rest of this. I've got this one game I want to play with you. So, we haven't even talked about Super Force yet. So, Super Force, show you star in a TV show that was produced by Viacom. This is really interesting on a production level. On the production level, they create this show Super Force along with Superboy and Lightning Force. They're 30-minute shows, and it's for syndication. Back in the day, these producers would syndicate, so you'd see these shows and packages on TV channels that usually weren't networks. That basically they syndicated them across the country. Right. And you start in this show Super Force, which is like Knight Rider and RoboCop kind of smashed together for 48 episodes. This really popular show. Couple weird questions. I can't pronounce her name correctly. Sek Varel was in the show with you?
Cease Varel was on Super Carrier.
Oh, but not in Super Force.
So that was a she. Super Force was Larry B. Scott, who was Lamar from Revenge of the Nerds. Gotcha. That's how he's best known.
Right, yeah. Larry, and then Lisa Nemi.
Lisa Nemi.
Okay.
Yeah, she came on and she did one season, the first season, I think it was, or the second, one of the two. We only do 2 seasons because this is around the time of the Gulf War. So the way this show is a half-hour sandwich with Superboy, and Viacom would pack these together, and then they would go sell them at these trade shows called NAPTI, where essentially you're selling content to advertisers who are buying local television stations, and they're buying content and they sell the advertising time, and it's a handshake that way. So you don't have networks anymore. Right. In this case, it's all off the network syndication. And in this case, we would go and promote the show. We'd show up at these, events and kind of stuff. And that's pretty much how that worked. It was a good model. It was working for a while, but then the industry was going through a really tough time. You had reality shows because the Gulf War came and it ended a lot of live action, three cam. Everything changed. The film stuff, action shows, hour-long dramas got whacked. They needed cheap and easy stuff. This was in that category, half-hour show. And then the next year got even more tough because we had to shorten the schedule and shoot 2 episodes. So now you got 10 days to shoot 2, whereas before you had,
on something like that, when you're number 1 on a call sheet, again, that means you're the first person there. Usually the number 1 is in every scene. That's kind of like the deal. This is a syndicated show, so you're not getting network money, so it's not a lot of money. You're doing 2 episodes at a time. How difficult was this show for Ken to make?
So it wasn't that bad because, to be honest, again, I'm lucky. They got us a house right near in a place called St. Ives, right next to Universal Studios, where we shot the show. I could rollerblade to work. That's how close it was, and I did. And our son, our oldest son, second child, was born on that show. Had the highest high and the lowest low on that show. Do
you tell Janine, hey, I think I'm doing really well on these auditions. Why don't we get busy tonight? We can have a kid soon.
Let's get a series. Try to have duplicates. Twins.
So when you did what was I going to ask you? It was
leaning in too much to your camera. I get.
There you go. Oh, so this show, you had a what the fuck co-star on this show of G. Gordon Liddy. What was that all about? How How did you end up acting against a Watergate conspirator?
Oh, brilliant. It was casting genius. These guys, I'm telling you, the first set of producers were replaced by the next, and the first ones went with like G. Gordon Liddy, Timothy Leary. The second set go full retard. They go deep into like, Ginger Lynn and go the porn girls.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was again, you're trying to get noticed. The show's trying to get attention somehow, right? It's not going to be promoted. Remember the old TV guides? Most of you probably people don't even know what TV Guide is, but that's how they promoted these shows. If you didn't watch the channel, you'd get the TV Guide to find your information. It was the only way to know.
Right.
And so so these things being promoted by this time that talk about 91-ish, 92. So they had to get noise out there. Oh, we got this guy. Now they'll talk about that. G. Gordon Liddy was a very cool guy. I remember when they gave him his he only came on for a couple of scenes during the show, because he was the bad guy you never see kind of thing, or rarely see. Santori, and it had an Asian thing to it with Italian name. I don't know. Anyway, so he ended up getting a small one banger. We say in the motorhome, you get the honey wagon, you have three rooms, and then there's that one that's always kind of like the office or a very small room. And he got stuck with that. And the second AD said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Liddy, that this is a small room. It was late notice. He called you in." He goes, "My dear, I've been in much smaller places." You go.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Oh, his stories were pretty amazing about how he thumbtacked he was getting bullied in school as a kid, and he ran tape down his arm and pushed to stick the pointed side of thumbtacks out. So when they tried to grab him, he had like an armadillo of armory, and that's genius for a kid in high school.
Oh yeah,
to make his own armory to be punching. They're like, "Oh my god!" Now their hands are all bloody for punching him. He's like, "I didn't do anything." So
I would be remiss if I don't ask about Leprechaun, where you got to work with the talented and beautiful and sexy Warwick Davis. When you guys are doing Leprechaun, and it's notoriously known as Jennifer Aniston. I don't know if it's her first film, but she's in the movie with you guys.
Yeah, it is I think so.
So I mean, obviously, no one's looking at her going, "Boy, she's going to be a huge star on a TV show. She's pretty. She's Did you know John or not? Not John. That's Matthew's dad, not her dad. Did you know her from around town, or did you guys have any connection before the movie?
No, not at all. In fact, same way I got everything. You go in for a reading and you get the role. And I think having a little bit of clout by this time of being on movies. So there, and also Mark, who what's Mark's last name? Who played the heavyset dude? He was on Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. Mark. So there's a couple of, I think Mark, myself, and Warwick. Had gotten some. We had some TV cue, but horror films don't work that way. Horror films work with a no-name cast generally, and so in this case, the company Trimark, which is originally a video store, have that back on Tuesday, please rewind. These guys are getting now into the movie business, and Mark Jones was the director of this, and Mark Price, who had done Children of the Corn, was hired to oversee Mark Jones and make sure, just to help him out. And then I met everybody in the same way, first day kind of thing. Jen, you could tell Jen's going to go places. She was funny and she was comfortable. She grew up, I think her dad was an actor and her mom.
Yeah, John was on a soap opera for a long time. Still, until he passed away.
Yeah, I don't know that. Anyway, so you could tell she was cute as hell. I mean, just really sweet, and she was all right. Jen was not bad on the eye.
That this town is filled with those interactions where you end up working with someone who then, oh my gosh, they turn out to be somebody. Their career, it becomes something so much more than you had ever thought would happen. I had, I tell this story where I auditioned with this guy for Heathers, and I liked the guy. He was good, but he was just sort of like low key. and I didn't think that he was turning it on. And I was like, I'm like, okay, whatever. And it turned out to be Brad Pitt. So it's like, I don't really know. I don't know if I'm the one to call these things out. So I want to play the game with you.
Hang on, Pat, with Jen.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you, and this should be encouragement for everybody. It isn't so much the person, because Jen's still Jen. She still delivers the same way. I think her only dramatic role was with Pat that I've seen in her career was with Jim Carrey, right, in that movie where she raised. So that she was always being a comedic actress for the most part, but it just allowed her to be more of and free with her already talent. And so that show was it was a gift. It was a packaged gift for everybody involved. So I wouldn't say, it couldn't happen to anyone else. That situation was so unique.
Right.
So
it's the person, not the project. And you can get a boost like, we all did from summer school, but you got to have something behind it.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. But we also teach kids. We have a great class called the Youth Weekly class that's every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And it's for kids. It's for like 10 to 17. And we have a great group of kids right now, and it is ongoing. So if you know someone that wants to get into acting and has never done any acting but would love to try, why don't you have them try starting off with Youth Weekly? Just go to workingactorsschool.com and check us out. It's Youth Weekly every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Act 3, present day.
You produced over 20 movies, dude. So I'm going to play this game with you. I'm going to name the movie, and you have to tell me who starred in it.
Okay. Some of these I won't know.
Okay.
My name was used on them.
Because what?
Because they put my name on it because I owned the company.
Okay. So you may have not even seen these movies. So let's go. Let's start from the beginning.
Let's start.
Okay. So Storm.
Martin Sheen, Luke Perry.
Very good. Escape Under Pressure or The Cruel Deep.
That would be The Inevitable Rob Lowe.
Very good. Deep Core.
That would be Craig Sheffer.
Uh-huh. And then moving forward, tell me what these movies were ripping off. Python.
That was Jenny McCarthy.
Nice.
And Olivier. Well, I think no. Who else? Oh no. Starship Troopers. It's
Casper Van Dien.
Casper, greatest Casper Van Dien. I'm just like.
That's okay. And Robert Englund. Now, here's a movie that you guys did, which I know what movie you were ripping off. And by the way, I have a huge career in doing movies that rip off other movies.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue. You have a movie here called Daybreak, which I think is the actual better title than the Sly movie Daylight, which is what you guys were taking off from. Who starred in Daybreak?
So Daybreak, I'm in that, and also Roy Scheider.
Yeah, Roy Scheider's in that. And
Roy
Ted McGinley is your
Scheider.
friend.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, for me again. These are like gems. You get to work with, not only produce a movie, hire him, and then act with him. that's
right.
like that's the best. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And so you did that. You did Falcon Down.
William Shatner.
Shatner.
Yeah.
Epoch and Epoch Evolution.
David Keith, Ryan O'Neal.
Nice. Boa.
Dean Cain.
Very good. Land Speed.
Billy
Zane. Dragon Fighter. Great name.
Oh geez, man. Now I'm gonna say, could this be the dude from Fast Times?
It could be. I have it as Dean Cain. Maybe it's just
then it's Dean Cain back again. Billy Zabka might be in there too.
So what I'm really impressed with is obviously you produced all these movies for UFO, which was what, United Film Organization.
Unified Film Organization, playing
Right.
off of the idea of UFOs. We're a sci-fi action movie company, high
And so
concept.
you were kind of doing what the Asylum is doing now before the Asylum. Now, the Asylum guys are my buddies. And what you do is you take a movie and you figure out, okay, well, this is a movie just like that, that's similar. I can get a star. You pay these stars what would amount to a lot of money for a day or two of work for them. And then you build the movie around them and then you sell it based on their name, kind of, right? Is that
Yeah, kind of
model?
like that. I mean, it's nothing the same always. So, for example, we had a niche before its time. We created animation for 35 millimeter films on a desktop level that wasn't really available for independent film. It was only going on for shows like Star Trek because they had Cray computer systems that were really kicking out high horsepower, and we didn't, and they were using the programs like that New Tech had, which was Lightwave at the time, and Maya came later. So we got in on that, and then we had to get a film recorder, so we'd shoot the scene, record, digitize that bit of the movie, take that digital into post. Now the animators, what they've been creating, would get composited to that, and we'd affect it, and then burn that back to the negative and cut that back into the negative.
Oh, wow.
So this was the very first stages of this. It later became all digital. We didn't need film anymore. You didn't scan that stuff. It was all shot. It was digital.
Right.
Everything digital. So rather than delivering 9 reels to the movie theater, now you're delivering one with, disc. These days it's like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's that was unique. We didn't really rip anybody else off. We did. I mean, a couple definitely.
Well, I don't want to say you rip them off, but it's like if there's a shark movie, you do a couple shark movies. If there's a disaster movie where you're coming out of a sewer, they're similar ideas.
Totally. I mean, before I left the company, I sold out my interest in 2000-ish. Because everything moved to Bulgaria. I'm not leaving my family. It's nuts, and we got bought out.
Hockey in Bulgaria sucks.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's good. I mean, I know it's a run and gun place there. I don't know. Yeah. Your hockey's horrible. So these, leaving was a better thing. Let them go. I'll stay here. I'm out.
Right.
But these kinds of movies we originally started with sort of, independent movies began before it got into this kind of level. You had horror films, little into crappy little action movies, right? There wasn't much going on, and they were shot cheap, and you pay a bunch of money for one actor to do something. But we had something unique because we had the effects, and we needed to go from these little sci-fi into high concept. That's going to be the transition.
So your secret sauce was the technology.
Yes, and that supports the concept.
Right.
So you're realizing, if I rip anybody off, it's going to be Bruckheimer. I'm going to be shooting along Bruckheimer's routes because he's got the high concept films. We're the poor man's version of that. That's never going to see the light of day in theaters, but we're going to get a live and die on each one of these movies and get them out in the video distribution or whatever, television that way. So that was really how that flew. We did move into other speed, air race, things like that. Again, heavily effect driven. As technology grew, capabilities grew, we could put more effects in. You were able
the
growing pains were a little bit.
And it goes very, very quickly in this business. So we'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. Now, besides classes, I also offer a one-on-one session. It's an hour just between you and me working on a particular piece of material, whether it's for an upcoming audition or maybe you're working on something and you need to have that breakthrough moment. These are really, really fun, and they're really, really great because they're really personalized and intense in all the good ways that intense can be. So if you're working on something, if you want to break through, if you want to have a one-on-one session where you're not working with other people, this is the way to do it. All the information is in the classes page on workingactorsschool.com. Act 4, questions. I like to finish up with a couple of questions. One is called That's Showbiz. And tell me what your most Hollywood moment is that you can think of in your life.
Most Hollywood moment.
Yeah.
Boy. When you say Hollywood moment, you mean like stereotypical Hollywood moment?
When you think it just whatever you respond to in that question, it could be stereotypical. It could be, for me, it was when I was shooting JAG and shooting a movie at the same time and being taken between the sets in a car. It just felt so Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay. I've had a lot of those kinds of little feelings along the way. For example, you get a call on doing Riptide, and they're going to NBC wants you to go out and talk to Fritz Coleman when he's doing the weather at Universal Studios. So we're sending you a car, and you're going to hype this episode coming up, right? And you're like, so I got to look at what am I going to wear? They got hair and makeup for you, and you're just there for a little 2 minutes.
What the great thing about you, Ken, is your most Hollywood moment is meeting Fritz Coleman.
Well,
okay, the next question is show me the money. And show me the money. What's your biggest missed financial opportunity? You don't have to give numbers, but like, is there something that you go, oh, I should have done blank?
I did everything except for what my biggest missed opportunity was, thanks to the freaking Writers Guild strike.
Okay.
That killed me. That oh my gosh, that and the Gulf War, but mainly writer's strike with Super Carrier, because we had every opportunity. China Beach was going on.
Yeah,
war was good business for TV at the time. The idea of heroes and that kind of stuff along those lines, and their greed and stupidity just dropped the ball for us. And I would just say that was the big, oh my gosh. But again,
then moving on to the next one is show and tell. As a teenager, what's your favorite poster in your room, and how did you come to obtain it? What do you have up on your wall, and why do you like it there?
I didn't have posters as a kid, man.
Oh,
I know. I get the kind you can keep in the shower, though. I had those. I'm kidding.
Okay, and then the ESR, the embarrassing secret revealed. What do you have a secret that was embarrassing that you kind of come off bad, but like is really like, I give the example of I was in an elevator, I was really upset, and this guy was running down the hallway trying to get to the elevator, and I just let the doors close because I could give a fuck, and it was Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, yes, I do have something very similar to that, actually. I gotten along the line, the show called Y&R, Young and the Restless soap opera. Right. And I play a date rapist, a guy who's date raped. And so I'm in, and so one of the things this is the regret thing too, where I'm doing interviews and I'm getting a little arrogant and cocky with people who are giving me interviews. I'm saying, this guy's not such a bad guy. I got to understand him. Rather than, no, he's horrible. I'm trying to give, the philosophical, arrogant, stupid actor attitude. And so then I end up giving this interview that I probably should never have said some of the stuff I said. And I get in the elevator. Who's in the elevator with me this one day was Bill Bell, who's the owner of the show, and his daughter is Laura Lee Bell, who's my victim. And he gets in with me and he says, well, Jeff. And I said, no, it's Ken. I'm the guy doing your daughter. And I ended up getting like bounced off that show. But I laugh about it because they threw me out of a window. And you're like, you never know that the first floor, second floor, 10th floor, I don't know. So yeah.
Did they really throw your character out a window?
They had me jump out of a window. Yeah. That's how I died. That's how they'd had enough of this guy, But I think she went on to get a similar situation with another but I guess he perfected it. Maybe, I don't know. It was just one of those. Soap operas are weird, anyways, right? Not to slam it. It was great work. I'm grateful to have it. A lot of money. Very, very helpful.
Epilogue.
Ken, I can't thank
Yeah.
you enough for coming by and sharing all of this stuff. Obviously, we literally could talk for another hour.
Yeah.
Just thank you so much, and thank you for doing the show.
Oh, Patrick, it's my pleasure. I just love hanging with you. It's been the best. It's been so great and wonderful knowing you. And again, wish you all the best with this as well.
Thanks, man.
All
All right. We'll see you next time.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm really, really glad you're here and checking out the podcast. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's a video podcast over on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you get the video ones. All of my socials are Working Actors School on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Please check us out. If you want any information about the school, it is at workingactorsschool.com. We've got classes going on all the time. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.